Welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I'm David Carr of Steward Your Business, where we bring people together to accomplish great things here on the Business Roundtable. I'm glad to have Michael Stewart here, a friend and collaborator, also another Success Champions Network member and founder of the company Business Planning Plus. We're going to get into the plus. We're getting into business planning. He really is helping folks simplify strategy, execute and focus, and really build momentum in their businesses. So I'm excited to have you here on the podcast, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. Really excited to see where this conversation goes, David.
Absolutely. Now, Michael, you and I have been talking actually throughout the year, and one of the things I really liked about our conversations was how do you get businesses in alignment and helping them be healthier overall in all aspects of the company. Talk to us a little bit about your journey of why you got to where you're at now with, building Business Planning Plus, and the help. You've helped dozens of companies now, and talk a little bit about your journey about why you got to where you're at now. And you're helping you're based in the UK, but you're helping companies throughout the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we go right back to the start, my first job was in a bank, and of course, in those days, in the late 1980s, that was join the bank because it'll be a job for life, son. That was the way to go. And of course, it never ended up being that way. But I got involved with business finance, and a watershed moment really for me was in the late 1990s when I did some business finance on a marketing agency that was getting involved with multimedia. So back in the 1990s, even though we were a marketing agency, we shared a lead to download our email on a dial-up connection within a marketing agency. So it was right back in the day. I was involved right at the start of marketing on the internet. So that was a heck of a journey up until about 15 years ago. I ended up doing digital marketing for some big brands here in the UK and some national names. But 15 years ago, got the opportunity to set out on my own. And so, went freelance, started doing some consultancy, and I've never looked back. And as I say, totally unemployable now. The last thing anybody would want to do would get me into a business to work there full time. I think I'm totally unemployable, as a lot of us self-employed people are, David. So, setting up, I started off by doing a kind of fractional CMO type work, but as I started to work with SME businesses, and I realized that those were the most successful, the ones that had a proper plan. So yes, I will be contributing to that plan, but I realized that lots of businesses, as a CMO, I knew that I needed to align what I did with what the business's strategic objectives were. And in some businesses, they didn't know what the strategic objectives were. A lot of the time people say, well, what are you going to do? And they say, well, we're going to double in size in the next 3 years. And they've nothing more than that. Well, for me, that's not a strategic objective. It's not a direction. It's just keeping score, really, is how big have you got and how much money are you making? So how's that going to come about? So I realized that there was a gap in the market for what I would call a business growth plan. And looked around what was available in the marketplace, had been exposed to all sorts of things working in SME businesses. And so developed my own methodology, put that together under the Business Planning Plus brand. And I now have a number of clients that I help annually to do that. And then I also help to project manage, if you like, the growth through the year, making sure that that plan isn't just something that gets written and goes in a drawer. It's something that lives and breathes throughout the year and could deliver that alignment as we talk about, but also the kind of growth and results that we want at the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I love that, Michael. I've been able to have business coaches, and I think, having folks like you coming in and giving them this perspective of how, like you said, I see people plan stuff if they're lucky, and then they put it away, they forget about it. In some people, like you said, aren't even planning. It's more of a hope. It's like, hey, maybe. And
absolutely.
It's like, hope is not a plan, right?
No, absolutely. I actually have a slide that I put up when I'm talking about this, where I say that most people spend more time planning their vacations than they do planning how they're going to be successful next year in their business. And we all know how difficult it is to plan a vacation, especially if you're bringing two families together. But it's true. Most people spend more time planning their vacations than they do planning their business success. And so there's a couple of things that somebody external facilitating this is going to it's going to help you get out of the weeds, help you see the wood for the trees, as we say, help you take a step back. And actually, if there are three parts to this, the first part is doing the planning. The second part is creation of the plan. The third part is then the implementation of the plan. The creation of the plan itself is probably the least valuable element of it. The fact that you take a step back, spend time to be in the moment, examining a whole range of areas in which your business could be better, not saying it's broken, but where you want to improve and what needs to happen to move your business forward. So that exercise of actually that navel gazing, that rolling over the rocks and seeing what's underneath, discussing it and getting the issues out on the table is one of the most valuable elements. And then, of course, okay, we create a plan, but that's absolutely useless if you don't then adopt that and have a mechanism for making sure that month on month progress is being made and the things that we're committed to are actually being done. So I want it to be very action orientated in the way that I do it. So in that way, this thing doesn't just become a document that goes in a drawer. It's actually at the center of everything, week in, week out, month in, month out, and it's the point of reference that we use in the senior leadership team meeting.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. It's not just like what I hear you saying. It's not just an event, like a one-time thing. We do the plan and that's it. What I heard you say, Michael, is there's a rhythm to it, and it, like you said, week by week or month by month, that we have to like keep, look at the plan and then adjust, right? You're taking action, but it's not, we have to understand kind of our North Star, but then what are we doing on a, like you said, where do you see businesses successful in the frequency and looking at that plan, Michael? What does that look like? Can you walk us through a little bit of that rhythm that you have when you're working with clients?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's most exciting. It's there every day. It drives. It drives what you're focused on every day. There's a great book we have in the UK. It was about a UK British rowing team for the Olympics, and it's called "Will It Make the Boat Go Faster?" And everything they looked at was, if I go and eat this pizza, will it make that boat go faster? If we go to the party, will it make that boat go faster? So they're always looking at everything through the lens of, will it make the boat go faster? Now, if you break a business down, and I break it down into 11 core areas, okay, start sales, marketing, operations, I could go through them, but the 11 core areas. Somebody's responsible for each one of those areas. It could be that people are responsible for multiple areas, but there needs to be a plan for each of those areas. So what is the people plan? What needs to happen? And if we take an example of, if you wanted to expand overseas, okay, that's a really, there's a strategic decision. I trust that you've discussed why you would do that and why that would be the best way to expand. But let's say we want to expand overseas. Obviously, sales and marketing, we've got to go to that market. We've got to create the demand. We've got to do it. But suddenly operations, customer service, people, HR, data, how do we hold our data, and different rules in the UK to the US. There's an IT issue. There's a financial issue. And what we can do is that if we say, right, we're going to go into the US and we're going to launch at the end of Q2, what needs to happen between now and the end of Q2? What does finance have to do? What does customer service have to do? What does HR have to do? Sales, marketing. What does everybody have to do? And in that way, you can go, right, by the end of Q2, we need to be here. What are the steps that we need to do? And then those can be talked about. Are you on target to be where we need to be at the end of Q2 so that we can launch? And everybody can come back to the senior leadership team once a month and go, right, you can red, amber, green, your initiatives and your projects. And then the conversation is very much, I have a framework that I use for the senior leadership team meetings, because You, like me, probably been in board meetings where
Oh,
people feel,
yes.
well, this is the only chance I get to speak, so I'm going to speak for half an hour. Okay. The
Uh-huh.
board report, I love this framework. What do you need to disclose? So what do you need to tell us about what's going on? If you've got something that's behind schedule, how are you going to get it back on schedule? What do you need to discuss? What might have changed that you then want to bring to the table and get some input on? Okay. And what do you need a decision on? So we've got disclose, discuss, decide. So our senior leadership team meeting, board meeting, whatever you want to call it, revolves around the things that we've all said are important and are they on track? And what do we need to take decisions on as we move through? And in that
I
way,
love that.
if everybody's knocking off all the things that we've agreed and have said are important, then there's a chance that we could have a better business at the end of the year than we did at the start of the year.
Yeah, that's great. You know, you're I just did a conversation a few weeks ago, Michael, here locally in Southern California to the International Internal Auditors and ISACA group, and we were talking about the breakdown between, well, for them, they're looking at security to the boardroom, and to your point, Michael, what happens is there's objectives and there's plans, and then there's misalignment. Because, well, I thought this was important. Well, I thought this was important. And I like how you just broke it down about when they're coming to speak to the board. Are you asking clarifying questions, or is this a point of collaboration? What are we trying to do here is what I hear you saying, Michael, because if you're coming in at different angles, you're going to talk past each other and you're going to get very frustrated. Like, hey, we want this, but I'm looking for collaboration, or I'm actually looking for you to ask me some clarifying questions. I'm not collaborating. I'm just going to answer some questions that you can move forward. So what, to your point of like having a clear guide, like you're saying, Michael, so that we're not getting frustrated and walking away from the meeting feeling like, well, that didn't land. That didn't get me where I wanted to go, right? I'm sure we've all been there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And part of it is, there's a saying as well that there's a saying that no plan survives the first contact with the enemy, isn't there, as well? And so part of the discussion could be, we thought this was the case. We've started working towards this. You know what? Let's say we're going to employ salespeople, or we're going to find an agent if we're going to go to this foreign country, right? We're going to find an agent. We cannot find an agent that we're happy with. So what are we going to do about it? And we adjust the plan. But the strategic goal of going to a foreign country or moving into a new market remains the same. We just had to pivot as we go through. But everybody else is still battling on and we're going towards where we need to get to. When we talk about alignment, though, everybody is then aligned with those business goals. And if anybody was come to me as a CMO and say, why are you doing PR in there? I would go, well, that's in line with building a brand in this market, which is in line with going to this market. I can then say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And hopefully we all see that we are building the same house or moving in the same direction or operating on the same big project. We've just all got different jobs to do in the project, which is, moving to a new market. I think this is about some form of structure. This isn't rocket science, if you like. It's just about some form of structure. And I think part of this is the project management of this going forward that needs to happen, because not holding people accountable or people realizing that it's okay not to do what they said they were going to do. If there's no structure, they don't realize, and you can't see that they're letting the team down and the business down. But it's a way to not beat people around the head, but just for them to be aligned and go, I know what I'm trying to do here, and I know what my role is in trying to make that happen. It's the same way as you would in a sports team, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, as you bring that up, Michael, number one, I've been in the end of this where I wasn't completely clear on the alignment. I said, well, they said, here, come, give me your sales plan or your whatever. And I said, okay, I can, but it was abstract, Michael. It wasn't connected to the larger company vision of market sectors and clients. And so I was in a group in a local area, and I said, well, how is I can come up with lots of different things, but I don't understand, like you said, where does this connect to? So if I'm not clear on this, then I get pushback. Well, that's not what we're looking for, but I don't understand. So depending on where we're at in the hierarchy, if you will, we can get stuck. And then, what I find is, especially if you're talking lower level folks, directors, managers, and then they get frustrated because they're like, I don't know how to win here, because I'm not clear on what the targets are.
Well, I use an analogy when I'm talking about businesses, and I talk about alignment. And part of that analogy is that I think some people talk about getting people on the bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, getting people on the bus to me suggests that I'm going to get people on the bus and then I'm going to take them there because I'm going to drive the bus. Okay. What I want to think about is that I like the idea that we're all joined together with a piece of elastic, okay, and a bungee cord. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going this way, okay, but people are going that way. The further they go that way, and the more I go this way, the tighter that elastic needs it gets, and the harder it is for me to continue to push that way. So the alignment is about bringing them with me. Now, they may be going in completely the wrong direction, not because, well, they could be what we call in business terrorists, because they're deciding I'm not going with the flow, I'm going to go my own way, right?
Right.
But it could be that they just don't know that we're supposed to be going this way. And the plan, if it's cascaded correctly, is to say, this is what our critical success factors are for 2026, whatever it is. And this is what we need to focus on and the things that we need to crack, if you like. In some systems, they call them big rocks. Some people, they call them big, hairy, audacious goals. But if you think of big rocks, I always think of them because they need to be smashed into small pieces and broken up and taken on. So, I love the analogies, and it's not that other systems don't necessarily work. I just find that what I've tried to create is something that's very functional, very living, very alive, and very relevant to people, and it helps with that alignment, because I think a high performing team is aligned. Every example I've got of a high performing team that I see, and I don't just mean sports teams, high performing teams, they all know exactly what it is that they're trying to achieve and do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know when we and I were talking before we, earlier before this podcast, I loved your analogy of the football or soccer here in the U.S. But I played soccer as a young kid, and if you watch young kids play soccer, they all want to get the ball, right? That's the glory. Like
they're all running around.
Everybody, all the kids are running to the ball. But you watch a professional football team, soccer team, they're not all running for the ball, right, Michael? I mean, walk us through. I mean, I love your analogy. I want you to share it because I liked how you broke it down.
Okay. So as it happened, when I started to look at a business, I found that there were 11 core areas that I needed to identify. And I thought, well, is there some way that this fits with the football analogy? We're going to say, will you? No, I should say soccer, even though it's proper football where the foot hits the ball. It's soccer or the You're in California. There's the big soccer thing going on in Los Angeles. So there we go. Yeah. Right. Okay.
There we go.
So listen, we're talking about soccer. So in the soccer team, we've got the glory boys who are out front. They're the strikers. They're the people that are putting the ball in the back of the net and scoring the goals. And of course, the glory boys and the fancy pants people in the sharp suits are the sales and marketing team. So I have them out front. Okay. And what I say is that they're the team they're the people that are making their promise. They are sitting down with the customer and they're making a promise about what working with the company will be like. The midfield, we have 4 in the midfield. The 4 across the midfield are the people that deliver that promise. Okay. And so those team members are going to be the operations team, the customer service team, the purchasing team, and then the new product development. Those are the 4 people that are focused on the customer. So they deliver the promise that the sales and marketing make. And then the back 4, as we call it, the defenders, the people that are the foundation at the back, are going to be the HR, the finance, IT, and systems. I make them as separate things on purpose, but those are the back 4. They run the business. They make the business run for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And then leadership and management, I take as being the goalkeeper. And if you've ever watched a British soccer team, what you've got is a goalkeeper stood at the back shouting. So I make the analogy, the fun analogy, to say, obviously, as leadership, we don't just stand there and shout and tell everybody to do, but that's what the goalkeeper does. So that's my framework, if you like. Now, in a high-performing team, there are all sorts of characteristics of a high-performing team about, continuous improvement. They're well-led, things like this. But a couple of things. Everybody knows what their job is. So you don't get the guys at the front of the team running back to do the defending work and you don't get the people at the back running forward to say, I'm going to score the goals today. I fancy doing that. Everybody knows what their job is. The other thing is that everybody trusts everybody to do their job. That's an of it as well. But what we've got is, if you look at growth and you look at business planning as saying, right, I'm going to go from $10 million to $20 million. I'm going to do that in 3 years. That's really just keeping score.
Yes.
The analogy again is that I bring you back to that team. That's like the manager going into the dressing room and holding up a sign that says 3-0 on it. Okay. That's the result that I want, but it doesn't tell us how we're going to get there.
Yes.
It doesn't tell us the strategy of, we're always going to attack down the right-hand side because we know that the left back's weak. The goalkeeper's not great, so we're going to put really high crosses in. What's the strategy, and what are we going to do to win and get the result that we want? And so, that's a sports team analogy. But again, you could bring it to the armed forces, you could bring it to special forces. Again, there's always a plan, and then there's the execution with honesty and integrity that's crucial. But it is a team, and everybody needs to be aligned in doing the same things. If the defenders don't want to play, we've seen it in all sorts of sports teams where people don't want to play, aren't aligned with it, and it just creates a weak team, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. And what comes to mind, you talked to me, Michael, because I've been in this journey. One of the last companies I was working with before I started Steward Your Business, we went, I was a woman-owned small business, and we went from, she wanted to do $1 million in revenue. She started the company in 2012. I came there in 2018, which we did. And then we went to 2 million the next year, and then to 4 million, and 7 million. What we had was, as you understand the business life cycle, different challenges, different problems. And so the way that you play the game, if you will, is a little different. And you might have to move positions perhaps too. You might have been maybe doing one thing. And oftentimes when we're smaller companies, we're playing a lot of these roles, positions, because there aren't enough players, right? We don't have enough people to cover, we don't have enough. So, but speak a little bit to that,
hats on. Yeah.
Speak a little bit to that journey of a business. It doesn't matter whether, like I said, 10 million to 20 million. It's not a one-to-one like scale. Like there's different things and different problems that come up, right?
Yeah, and I suppose it's like a team getting promoted from the second division to the first division. Suddenly we're playing a different game. We're playing in a different marketplace. We're playing at a different level, and I think one of the areas that I think it comes home most when we're talking about people is that you need to think strategically about your people, because if you're going to go from 10 million to 20 million, a 10 million organization looks like this. A 20 million organization looks completely different. And what you've got to look at is you've got to assess your players, your team members, and you've got to go, right, when we're 20 million, we're going to need a head of operations. Currently, that falls under the managing director, but at some point, we're going to need a head of operations. Do we need to bring that expertise in, or is there somebody that could step up? And suddenly you're starting to look strategically at what your people plan is, and whether there's training that needs to be done. But you're planning forward and thinking forward about your team. It's absolutely great if you could give somebody, but if you're not careful, you could have somebody that was packing boxes, and in 3 years suddenly they're head of operations because the business grows so fast. And have they been given all the tools that they need to succeed in that role? It doesn't mean that they can't do it, but we need to make sure that we're investing those. And that is whoever's responsible for HR or people needs to be looking at the people and how we develop the people. And so, continuous learning skills, et cetera, are crucial. But you're having a conversation about it that says, operations, where is it going in the next 12 months, 2 years, 3 years? And what are the challenges going to be? So what do we need to do in this quarter, in next quarter? What will we do in Q3 and Q4? You're consciously having the conversation rather than reactively going, well, we've promoted
Yeah.
Phil and he's not up to the job. And
Right.
it's not Phil's fault if he's not had the training and he was packing boxes 6 months ago and suddenly he's head of
Mhm.
operations. He doesn't know
Yeah,
what he doesn't know.
absolutely.
So yeah, that's
I've
how it
definitely seen that.
works for me.
I've definitely seen that, Michael. And again, that's why I love having you on the podcast or on the Business Roundtable podcast. By the way, as you guys are listening to this, Michael Stewart and I are connected on LinkedIn. We're going to make sure you can access to his website and all that good stuff in our show notes. And if you have comments or feedback, please drop it in there wherever you find us, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, whatever the podcast platform it is, so Michael can respond to you. But to your point, Michael, I think having you on the podcast is, again, looking at those things and saying, look, I know you love this particular person. They've been with your company for so many years and they do really well at this position, but they're struggling here. And what is it that they need? Whether it's leadership training, sales training, is it they need some other technical skill that they don't have because there's something new in the marketplace? What is that? You're looking at that, or, in helping them. That's what I hear you say, Michael, too. We're in a very interesting market right now. We're recording this here in the end of 2025, where, there's been lots of ups and downs and volatility. And I know you've been exploring some new places, helping entrepreneurs look, where are their new marketplaces? Where can I, go in the world to reach folks that need my product or service? And so helping unlock them and get out of their own way, right, Michael? Of like, hey, envisioning what could be. But I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies, and we need somebody else to help unpack that for us and say, look, where are your greatest strengths? Where can you really help the business grow and thrive, and get in that lane and get out of the position in which you're really not having that great of impact. But I think sometimes as business, especially when we're smaller, or there's fiefdoms or other things where we're holding on to things and it's not helping the business, and we need somebody to come in and look at that like a doctor. I feel like, Michael, you're diagnosing some things, right? And you're unlocking them and saying, look, this is not working. Is this really what you want? Getting clear on where do you want to go, right?
I think there's a couple of things that you raised there. So the first thing is that ultimately a business owner needs to make themselves redundant so that they can so that the business can operate without them. Otherwise, they're going on holiday and coming back to a pile of stuff, and stuff doesn't happen if everything needs to go through them. So that's part of it. The other thing that you touched on was when somebody is falling short, let's say falling short in their role, but that may be not necessarily their fault. It could be that we promoted them too fast, too soon, and we've not given them the support. So I think it's important that we're conscious in the way that we talk about the people and promote the people, and hence why, somebody thinking strategically about the people is going to be looking at the transformation of the business, and not just the transactional stuff. Have we got a staff handbook? Does everybody have an appraisal, et cetera, et cetera? You've got to be thinking about, how are the people transforming, and how do I transform the people? And literally, I was in my SCN group today, and somebody did the 3-minute teach, and they were talking about creating a culture of learning in a business, not just once a month we're going to do a piece of learning. How do we facilitate that in so many ways? And you used to hear about Google being able, empowering people to go and do their passion projects, but also, to learn whilst they're on the job and to better themselves, because better employees are going to be better for the business. So there's a support about what do I need to do to help you thrive in your role. I think if people are struggling in the role, you're going to work through, how can I help it so you can thrive in your role? But ultimately, if this isn't the right role for them, they're probably struggling with it as much as you are. And I always think that the conversation is, the conversation can often be, you know what, that's a weight off. I didn't want to come to you and say that I can't do this, or I'm not up to this, or I don't know what I'm doing. But often it can be a very cathartic thing for them as much as the business, if you like. And so externally, I look and I think the the benefit of putting somebody external into your business is that they're going to ask all those questions, and they're going to challenge the things that you've got. I need to deal with that, but I've just got too much on my plate today. And they're going to bring them into focus, and we're going to go, we got to deal with that. And hold the business owner or hold somebody accountable for dealing with the issues that hey, everything's not always about issues. Sometimes it can be positive where you say, we want to do this, but because I like to position it. I do a kind of session where I say, complete this sentence. Wouldn't it be great if, rather than where are the problems? Wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be great if it didn't take us as long to pick an order from the warehouse? Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have the same amount of staff turnover? The positive way of thinking about it, and we go, okay, staff turnover. Task HR, the people responsible, people go, there's a thing that we have. How are you going to solve that? And when are you going to come back with what you're going to implement to make that not be the case anymore? How are you going to solve it? Report back to us. And again, you can see how that could be something. By the end of Q1, I want a plan in place. So you've got the first month, you're going to start to do some employee surveys. You're then going to come back at 2, and you're going to report what that comes back and what you think the plan needs to be. And by the end of month 2, by the end of month 3, we've got that in place. And suddenly there's an issue that was an issue that is now solved, and we have a better business than we had before. And that could have an impact on profitability, couldn't it? Just
100%. Oh, 100%. I love that you said, it ties to my philosophy at Steward Your Business is leadership is stewardship. It's about serving others so that they can thrive, like you said. So if we're looking at everybody's best interest in mind in the long term and our clients, we will win in the long term. It's like, so I hear totally said, what if we could do this?
Yeah.
How about if we thought about that and turning it on its head a little bit and saying, oh yeah, we could. I didn't think about that, and I love working with business owners that have that mentality and like I didn't even know I can consider that. And you're opening them to see possibilities. And I love what you're doing too in the international space, Michael, of creating a place for folks that I didn't even think about going outside of my home country, and reaching people and like, how could I help them?
Yeah.
And I think, for those that are listening, it could be intimidating, but you have an advocate here, somebody that's helping you and asking the questions, opening up the possibilities of what could be. And I think that's amazing because, you have a certain skills and abilities and insights that you're bringing to your clients and helping them, Michael. And I think I hope that as people are listening to the podcast, they're like saying, okay, well, I didn't know where to start. I didn't even know that there was a business growth planner person out there that would be able to help me in my business. I didn't even know where I would begin, Yeah. So
I think in the times that we've got sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead. Go, please. Go ahead, Michael. In the times we got.
Okay. I think the thing for me is that in the economic times that we've got in UK, we've got fairly static market at the moment. We all know in the US we've got the tariffs and how that's affecting it. We had Mark Carney talking to the UN or doing the press conference after the UN conference where he's saying, that Canada needs to start looking east-west rather than north-south. Okay, overseas markets could be no risk. They could de-risk you being only in one market in the same way as being concentrated in only one client is not great in a business. Concentrated in one market. And going to a new market doesn't mean you have to employ 20 people in a new market. You could find an agent. You could find a distributor. You could buy a company that's already operating in that marketplace that's got some market share already. And maybe that would be a collaboration. You could just have a joint venture with somebody that's complementary to you. So there's ways that you can do it. And I think certainly I've done some work with a mutual friend we've got where we've put together this methodology we call Passport to Growth, and that really is how can we bring the expertise that we have. I've got clients that are selling in 50 countries. David, partner in this, he's taken businesses international, multiple businesses international and into new markets, creating businesses that are more valuable as a consequence of it. what we've done is we've looked at it and gone, right, okay, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner, you're busy, you're not sat doing nothing, and
Right.
you may not have sold internationally. So how can we take you step by step on a journey to understand whether it's an opportunity for you? So when we talk about business growth plans and we talk about, well, where's growth going to come from, that could be international markets, and we have a way that we kind of take people on that journey. But that could be a whole new other
Yeah,
podcast,
so
David.
we're gonna have you come back on the podcast, Michael, and maybe we'll have David Solomon come on too. But this has been a blast to have you here. I know we're getting up to the end of our time together today, but what I love that you bring this approach about how you get a business really winning with clarity and purpose. Obviously, we have the shared passion of getting the teams aligned and believing in that.
Yeah.
I really feel like culture and strategy are kind of two sides of the same coin. If we get them aligned, we can build that momentum.
Yeah.
And that's why I love having you on the podcast as not just a guest, but also a contributor, a collaborator with me and helping Steward Your Business grow and reaching other companies. This is Michael and I are, looking for ways that we can help more of you out there, our listeners, come alongside you as trusted advisors, guidance, consultants. As we wrap up the podcast, Michael, and we've covered a lot of different things here today, what would you say to those people that are listening, whether it's the business owner or maybe it's somebody else in the company that says, hey, I want to help this company grow, and there's maybe there's a breakdown of strategy, a breakdown of the plan of understanding. What would you say to that person as they're listening, that they should take action on? What where would you direct them?
I think we have talked a whole range of things. I've talked about all the 11 areas. You might not catch all the 11 areas. We've talked about mission, vision, values. We've talked about team members. We've talked about personal development. I think the thing for me is that the businesses that have been successful that I've been part of, where I've worked as a consultant or fractional, they're very willing to have honest conversations, and they're very willing to challenge. And I think that's a strength of SME, smaller businesses, SME, SMB, wherever you want to describe them. I know I have a friend that's left the army and gone to work in a big corporate, and he is absolutely amazed at the positioning and the corporate politics that are going on. You've got a business. Get good people around you, and you'll be amazed. If you're a business owner, you'll be amazed what your team can do if you involve them in the conversation. You don't have to have all the answers. Make it a training thing, but say, I'm interested. What do you think about? And ask an open question. Tell me what you think about. Explain what you mean by this. Tell me more about that. And you're starting to roll over those rocks. And even if you just yourself ran a session that was, right, here's a piece of paper we're going to write on here. Wouldn't it be great if, and you complete those things, how would our business be better at the end of the year than it would be at the start of the year? We're not doing anything massively strategically, but at least we're opening up the conversation. And then when you need somebody to facilitate the business planning, you know where to come, of course.
There you go. Michael, thank you so much for being here. I love that. Yeah, go have those honest conversations. And if you're not having them, then that definitely should be a warning bell. But go have those honest conversations. I think they're powerful. Don't be afraid of them. Lean into them, like you're saying, Michael. Have the conversations. Bring in somebody like Michael that can look and look at where you're at, giving you real feedback. Make sure you guys connect with Michael on LinkedIn. Reach out to him. I'll make sure, like I said, you guys can connect with him on our show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Michael. A real pleasure having you.
Lovely. Great. Always great to have a conversation, David. We'll speak again soon, I'm sure.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, be well, and we'll see you out here back on the Business Roundtable Podcast.